The Cardinals 9-2 winners here to win their third straight to start off the 2025 season. Oh, how sweet it is. Boy, is it refreshing to see things moving in the right direction to start off the 2025 year for your St. Louis Cardinals, who are now 3-0. This is Cards Hub postgame following a 9-2 victory for the Redbirds. I am your host, Ethan Hannaford, joined today by the one and only Randy Karraker. Randy, there's a lot of exciting things that happened today. The offense is continuing to stay hot. Looking forward to discussing it in all in just a moment. I have to first mention that Cards Hub postgame is presented by Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. As I was saying, Randy, this offense continues to stay red hot. The pitching has been superb as well. Through 3 games, it's a baby sample size, but there's not much to complain about for the Redbirds.
No, there really isn't, Ethan. And when you think about what the Cardinals did last year, they were a team that just couldn't hit with men in scoring position. They've done that this year. They've had depth throughout the lineup. But today, Lars Nootbaar, who had been the star of the first 2 games offensively, doesn't come up with a hit. The Cardinals are 3-0 when scoring first. Obviously, like you say, small sample size, but it makes it a lot easier for a pitcher when he has the lead. And we saw that with Sonny Gray. We saw that with Eric Fetty yesterday. We see that with Palante today. And I thought the cool thing about today was a guy that had a pretty bad spring that caused him to sit for the first couple of games, Nolan Gorman. He comes up with 3 hits with a long home run. And one thing we know about Gorman is when he hits the ball, it goes. And so a lot of good things to take from today's game and from this series in general. Like you said, the offense at the moment looks great. And we need to temper our enthusiasm because it is a small sample size. And I talked to Ollie Marmol about this before the game. But the fact of the matter is the Cardinals do look like they have a different approach. And I go back to what Brant Brown said during spring training, the new Cardinal hitting coach, when he said there are going to be times where a hitter has to go up and be a hitter and times when a hitter has to go up and be a slugger. And the Cardinals appear to have a better approach than they had last year.
Well, let's go ahead and let's start off with the offense. Obviously, things got going relatively quickly once again for St. Louis. They had runners in scoring position, 2 of them to start off the game, but they weren't able to bring in those couple of runners that were on the bags and trailed 1-0 early in this one. But you get to the second inning, and then the onslaught gets going. Nolan Gorman, his first hit of the year. Pedro Pajes with a ground rule double that he roped down the left field line. And then Victor Scott, Victor Scott II, the man that had all of the eyes in spring training. I think that obviously there's a lot of excitement around him, but there most definitely is this, can he carry it over? Or is this just going to be a thing where it's just the spring and then, you get into the regular season and you start to see some of those struggles again? Well, it's been a red hot start to the year for Victor Scott as well. And he blistered that baseball into the right field bullpen and gave the Cardinals an early 3-1 lead.
And Ethan, I don't know about you, but I don't expect him to hit home runs, but man, when he hits he lets them fly, and he's been terrific so far, both from a power standpoint and obviously from a speed standpoint. And yeah, he has that stroke, doesn't he, that allows him to hit the ball out of the ballpark. I wonder how long it'll be, especially with the success of Nootbaar, how long it'll be before they have Victor Scott hitting second, because I think there's things they can do with Scott leading off, and you could keep Contreras hitting second and then hit Nootbaar third. There's a lot of different things you could do with this lineup if Victor Scott continues to get on base. And I'm not even talking about the home runs. I'm just talking about getting on base and being able to steal a base. There's a lot of teams that would like to have Victor Scott and Mason Winn at the top of their lineup, and they're at the bottom of the Cardinal lineup.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think that they proved a couple of years ago with Jordan Walker, even when he started to heat up, that they were in no rush to force him into higher pressured at bats right now. And like I said, everything that we talk about right now is going to be baby sample size, but it's going to take a couple of weeks for us to really have an idea as to where this team is at. But, if Victor Scott does continue at this pace, eventually it will be a question of, well, could he make more sense to be extremely careful probably with these young guys as they were with Jordan Walker a couple of years ago, as they were for the first several months of the year last year with Mason Winn as well?
And I think it depends, Ethan, on the player and his abilities and his demeanor. And it depends on the spot. I think there is a big difference between hitting a guy third and fourth and then having a guy who spent his life being a leadoff hitter and having him lead off, because what Victor Scott expects to do is come to the plate, get on base, and
Right.
steal bases. I don't know that there's going to be any more pressure for him hitting there than he is hitting eighth. And I always go back to Vince Coleman, because he came up and Whitey Herzog said, "You're going to be my leadoff hitter and you're going to have the green light. You can run whenever you want." And he provided a swagger for that Cardinal team in the mid 80s that they didn't have before. And Victor Scott seems to me to be the kind of guy that that has that sort of swagger. I think that if you get him at the top of the lineup, he's a guy that can intimidate the opposition with his base running. And obviously, as we've seen now, he has a little juice too in that bat.
There's no doubt that once he is able to start consistently getting on base, which we've seen a good start to the season here in the first 3 games, that he is going to be a threat, whether he's at the top, whether he's at the bottom. And even, I trust that Mason Wynn's bat's going to get going as well. It almost extends out that top of the lineup because of Lars Nootbaar's ability to hit for power, because of Wilson Contreras' ability to hit for power, and then so on. It almost feels like you have a couple of leadoff guys at the bottom, to where when eventually when you're going to be starting off at the bottom of the lineup there, it's really just extends out your lineup from top to bottom rather than it being 1 through 6, 2 through 7. It really is a full 1 through 9.
It's a long lineup with a good bench. I mean, today Gorman gets into the lineup, and so Jordan Walker has to be on the bench. You still haven't used Luken Baker, who had such a terrific spring off the bench, and a guy like Herrera is available to you on the bench today. So there's a lot of talent. I don't know that this is going to be a great lineup, but physical talent is there for this group. And now it's just a matter of, as the Cardinals have said, giving these guys the opportunity to show what they're capable of doing. And it's fun to see the chat line, and feel free to join us on the chat line. Ghostface Gaming, LOL to all the haters who are mad that the Cardinals are 3-0 and first place out of the gate. But I think there is, Ethan, and tell me what you think, because you've been around the ballpark a lot. I think there is a sense on the part of a lot of people, they want to be right because of their disdain for John Mozeliak, and so they do kind of root against the team, even though it's their team. They want to be right about their feelings about John Mozeliak, so they're kind of rooting against the team. Do you get that sense?
I do, to a certain extent. I think that there has been so much bitterness and disdain, I think, for how the ownership has gone about things here these last couple of years. And let's be frank, there is reason to be frustrated with some things, with how things have went the last couple of years. It's very Cardinal fans are not used to losing, and there's been a lot more losing here in the last 2 seasons than fans in St. Louis are used to. However, I think that, I think it needs to be a situation of let your yes be yes and your no be no. And if the Cardinals are having success, be excited that the Cardinals are having success, no matter how big that stretch is in St. Louis, no matter how small that stretch is in St. Louis. But I do agree with you that to a certain extent, there is this, I think early in the year, especially because the level of hope, I would say, was so low, that I think some fans may just be being careful as well. Perhaps not to get too excited, but I will say this also, with that, there is excitement, and there has been a lot of fluttering, especially on the old tweeter, about fans are excited, saying this team is different already. Fans were saying that after opening day. Now fans are all, that's their job. It's fans' jobs to overreact a little bit, but I think that everyone is recognizing that this lineup is doing a lot more than it did at the start of last season. Really, any point in last season, it has been a refreshing start offensively for this club. And they kept it going in the 3rd inning when they put on a 5 spot. Started with a Brendan Donovan base hit. Nolan Arenado ropes a double to left field. Burleson misses a home run by just a couple of feet. It's funny to think about it. They had the 2-3 run home runs today, Randy, and obviously there wouldn't have been a third if Burleson hits that out, because it comes on just a couple of at-bats later. But it just goes to show that even with Burleson not hitting one out, The next man was ready to go in that spot. The first time since 2023 that the Cardinals have done that, hit 2 3-run bombs in a game. And all of a sudden, you're staring at an 8-1 lead after 3 innings of play. Can we talk about Pedro Pages for a moment?
Mm-hmm.
This was the guy that that I think most Cardinal fans can agree that he is the better defensive catcher, but also a lot of Cardinal fans saying that you need offense in a lineup that is lacking or has been the last couple of years. Pedro Pages sure did put that to silence, at least for today. His bat was wide awake all day, and most notably, showing a little bit of oomph with the 3-run bomb there in the third.
Yeah, he has some pop, and it's interesting because not only do you see the offense from Pages, which we didn't really see during spring training from him or last year. He seems to be an ordinary offensive player. But then yesterday, what's our big complaint about Ivan Herrera? That he can't throw people out, but he may or may not have thrown somebody up, but he got credit for it. Well, no, he didn't get credit for it. The replay showed that the runner was safe. Right. But the fact of the matter is he's had a pretty good stretch here in the first couple of games. That's the one area, Ethan, where I don't think the Cardinals are intent upon getting either of those guys 500 at-bats. I know they want to get 500 at-bats for Lars Nootbaar. They want to get 500 at-bats for Jordan Walker. If everything were the way they would like it to be, they'd want to get 500 at-bats for Nolan Gorman. I don't know that that's going to happen. Those are the big three, though. Nootbaar, Walker, Gorman. But they do have to find out about the catching situation, especially because they have Jimmy Crooks on their way. Crooks was their minor league player of the year last year, and they do want to find out which of these two catchers is most capable of helping them win. And in baseball in 2025, it's different than baseball in 2005 when Yadier Molina came up and hit 206, because you could get by with just great defense and not great offense. Well, now defense is easier, and it's going to get even easier when we have the challenge system. But the way that the catcher catches now is easier than it was in 2005. And offense is more important. It's more prevalent now than it was in 2025. So I think Pages getting better offensively is probably more important than Herrera getting better defensively. And the pitch count has changed a lot too. Now, and the pitch clock. It makes it easier, and the decision is not as difficult for a catcher because he just doesn't have as much time to think as he had in the past. All he has to do now, a catcher just has to go with his initial instinct. He has to be prepared and call the right pitch for his pitcher.
Now, the only devil's advocate to that, in my opinion, would be that while it is, I think you make good points about it being easier to catch, it is much more difficult to throw runners out. And all of a sudden, we have seen those rates the last couple of years climbing through the roof. We know that Ivan Herrera, his arm has struggled. We also know that he worked on that this past offseason. So we're waiting to see if the work that he put in this past offseason is going to lead to any improvements. But that on the other side is a part of the game that I think is growing more and more challenging. So while some of the points about it being easier to catch as far as, framing and some of those different metrics goes, I agree with you. But the base stealing side of things, throwing runners out, I think is only going to get more and more challenging.
I would think that you're 100% right about that. And the throw that Herrera made yesterday was a lollipop. Pages definitely throws better than Ivan Herrera does. And we got spoiled because we had 20 years of one of the best catching throwers, if not the best throwing catcher of all time. I guess he's a catching thrower and a throwing catcher, but Yadier Molina was one of the best of all time. And we did get spoiled by that. And we also, a guy that wound up with more than 2,000 hits. So we were really spoiled by the catcher that we had. And it seems like now the Cardinals are going to have to choose one or the other unless somebody improves significantly in some facet of the game. Or it could wind up, Ethan, that Jimmy Crooks winds up being the guy. Or I've heard that Leonardo Bernal is a guy that the organization likes even better than Crooks. It might be that the catcher that the Cardinals have when they're ready to win again isn't even on their 26-man roster right now.
That could very well be the case, and it really wouldn't surprise me at all. I think there is a lot of open opportunity at that position this year, and I don't know if the Cardinals even know what direction that if there is a direction that they are going to be leaning towards. Maybe we look here 100 games into the season, and it's a different story, and we see one of them playing more than the other. Obviously, just from the first series here, Karraker gets 2 starts. Pajes gets 1, but once again, it's all baby sample size. It's so hard to really to take away thoughts from that. So that'll definitely be an interesting thing to be keeping an eye on. Switching to the guy that was throwing to them to start this one off today, Randy, Andre Pallante goes 5 innings today. Looked, in my opinion, relatively sharp. 4 hits allowed, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. I know left a couple of mistakes. I think he's probably wishing he had that first at bat of the game back when he let the leadoff walks. Yeah, like you said, started off 0-2, and then the home run he gives up to Willie Castro. Didn't really matter at that point, but the velocity was up there for Andre Pallante today. I thought that it was a very serviceable 5 innings of work for the Cardinals' number 3 starter.
Yeah, for his first start of the year to go 5, give up 2 runs on 4 hits. He struck out 3 and walked 2 through 78 pitches. I thought that was terrific for Pallante, and especially on the heels of what he did last year, because when he came up and made the 20 starts last year and won 8 games, he performed very well a lot. And I think sometimes what happens is either a guy gets comfortable or the league goes to school on him during the offseason. And Minnesota didn't get a chance to see a lot of him last year. But I'm with you. I am thrilled with what Pallante gave them. I was thrilled with what Sonny Gray gave them in the opener. I was thrilled with what Fetty gave them yesterday. So I think the starting pitching you have to be very happy with. And the bullpen obviously has come through as well. Today, Steven Matz goes 4 innings, 4 shutout innings. He allows only 1 hit and strikes out 2. And when Matz joins that 6-man rotation in the middle of April, you got to feel good about everything that he's been able to accomplish so far in spring training and now in his first game of the season too.
Yeah, you talk about Mother Nature taking care of the Cardinals today. Had the rain delay, but it allowed for Andre Pallante was probably done, I imagine, after 78 pitches based off of what we've seen Gray and Fetty throw. I think 77 and 73 pitches through the first 2 games. It seems like at least through this first time through the lineup, the Cardinals are capping out around 75 to 80 pitches for each of their starters. So like I said, I imagine that Pallante was done. And with the Cardinals having a big lead, there's a chance that Steven Matz caps it out regardless. But the rain delay,
right? You got the big lead. So you might as well get Matz in there because you got to pitch him at some point and have him still sharp when he joins the rotation. So I'm with you there. I think that Pallante probably, even if there hadn't been a rain delay, was going to come out.
And he will, if he's not getting, those long outings, I don't know how many times he's going to be able to throw 51 pitches in an outing prior to April 16th. He's going to get bullpen work to make sure that he's ready to go, or at least, getting to that 70, 75 pitch mark by his first start, I'd have to imagine. But for him to get some live opportunities in there, I think is definitely a beneficial thing here for the Cardinals, for him to extend it out, go 4 innings. That's a good rate there for Steven Matz.
Yep. Let's take a look at some of the comments people have been making. Ghostface Gaming, I predicted the team would be a playoff contender all offseason. I stand by that. 3-0. We can't disagree with you, Ghostface Gaming. Also, A Lane, this team is going to be really bad or surprisingly good. So far, it's the latter. I don't know if they'll be really bad. What do you think? I looked at this as a team. I didn't think they would be a 71-win team like 2 years ago, Ethan. I kind of figured that they would be in that 75 to 82 range, and things can happen. Surprises can happen, but I think this team has enough to avoid being terrible.
I completely agree with you. I mean, you look at this year's squad compared to last year's, and the biggest difference is there's 2 pieces, really. It's Paul Goldschmidt, who was good in the second half, but overall it was an extremely disappointing season for the Cardinals, former MVP, and Andrew Kittredge, who threw a boatload of innings last year, but we've already seen positive things. Even last year, we saw positive things from a lot of guys that didn't get nearly as many innings or high stress innings. I don't think necessarily a single person is going to fill in, even Phil Maton, and beat Andrew Kittredge. But I think it wouldn't surprise me if you see, a combination of Chris Roycroft, Ryan Fernandez, and a Phil Maton, being those impactful setup innings later in the games. So I say all that to say that I agree with you. I don't think that there is that crazy amount of difference between this Cardinals team from last year to this year. If you can count I don't think it's fair to say if you could count on, but if you can hope that guys like Jordan Walker can have a more impact on this team, that Nolan Gorman can bounce back a certain extent, I'm very confident. I've been saying it ever since the stuff with Nolan Arenado fell through, that I thought that he was going to have a bounce back season. When you heard the amount of work that he was putting in this offseason, how motivated he was, I was very confident in that. So I think there's a lot of reason to believe that this Cardinals team as a whole is at worst right around what they were last year, which the 83-win team last year. Saying that they're 80 to 84, 80 to 85 this year, I don't think is that crazy.
And you've got Eric Fetty for the whole year this year. Yep. Plus, you're going to have Matz in the rotation ultimately, and we're going to see Matthew Liberatore. Last year, you got a lot of innings out of Kyle Gibson, and Lynn, despite his injuries before he suffered the knee injuries, gave you a lot of innings as well. I'll be interested to see if the two left-handers can give the Cardinals enough innings so that they can protect the bullpen. I think that a healthy Steven Matz is capable of that. We'll just have to see. Nobody knows about Matthew Liberatore, but I want to see Matthew Liberatore get 10 starts in a row and find out what he can do with 10 or 12 starts in a row, because he's never been really given, at least with the Cardinals in the major leagues, a fair opportunity to show what he's capable of. He's made 24 starts, and 4 of those were kind of pressed into duty starts. There was one last year where he relieved one night and had to make an emergency start the next day. I want to see him be a part of the rotation and see what happens if he's able to take advantage of that at a high level.
And I love what Ali Marmol commented and said about Matthew Liberatore. This is not a tryout for Matthew Liberatore. He is going to get opportunities. He does not need to be worrying about if he has a bad start or a bad couple of starts, if he's going to get yanked and put into the bullpen. Ali Marmol already said that's not going to happen. So I think there's no reason as to why, unless it's for barring injury, that is going to happen, what you just said, Randy, which I think is gives me confidence, and looking forward to seeing him go on Tuesday against the Angels, an upcoming series that I think the Cardinals shouldn't have issues taking care of this Los Angeles team. I think that especially at the quality of baseball they've started off with, it should be fun to watch this team continue playing. Back to the offense, Randy. Bo commenting here, mentioning that Brant Brown is the number one reason for the 3-0 start. We have to give our love to Brant Brown. Oh. Holy cow. The approach, it just seems like a night and day difference from 2024 to 2025.
And you look at Gorman today, I think it's a perfect example. And Gorman wasn't perfect during spring training. That's why he sat on the bench for the first couple of games. But his approach clearly has changed when you look at the way Jordan Walker is hitting. And here's what I'm talking about when I talk about approach. We've seen a lot of times over the years, Ethan, where Cardinal hitters would go to the plate and the only approach they had was to swing for the fences, right? And it wasn't about necessarily getting the bat on the ball when you needed just a base hit. Nolan Gorman, if he gets his bat on the ball, it's going to fly out of the ballpark. And Lars Nootbaar has been a fine hitter so far. But when you look at the difference of Nolan Arenado this year and compare it to last year when he looked like he was just swinging for home runs all the time. He's got that nice level swing. He's got kind of the golf swing going, but it looks like he has his swing going again. And when you look at the top of the lineup, the way that it has performed, Wilson Contreras notwithstanding, it just seems like from an approach standpoint, the Cardinals are buying into what Brant Brown is telling us.
Yeah, I completely agree. Wilson, and you mentioned Wilson Contreras, quiet start to the year. Even today, Contreras hit a couple of balls harder that just ended up right at Harrison Bader out in left field. So even Contreras today hitting the ball a little bit harder, has had quite a few strikeouts here to start off the year. Randy, I know it's a little bit of older news at this point, but I got to get your thoughts. What was going through your mind when you see Wilson Contreras start chewing on his bat tape yesterday?
I thought maybe it was a superstition or something like that. And as it turns out, it was very innocent and very smart on his part. The pitch clock is down at 11. He's got to be looking at the pitcher at 8. He felt like he didn't have time to rip the tape off and put it in his pocket in 3 seconds. So what's he do? He not only rips it off with his teeth, but he ate it. He said it tasted disgusting, by the way. But it was an interesting but a smart and a level-headed approach. I mean, that's some quick thinking on his part, too, to chew it off and eat it.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, they did discuss that a little bit during the broadcast today. So thought that was funny to mention once again. Lars Nootbaar quiet today at the top of the lineup, but has been impactful through the first couple of games, and he's kind of the one that I think started off this. Oh yeah, like the at bats are looking sharp, the quality is looking sharp. You always expect him to take quality at bats, but the Cardinals didn't really use him at the top of the lineup that much last year, partially because of the amount of injuries that he dealt with.
And Wynn was so hot, right? Wynn had such a good year last year that you didn't want to take him out of the leadoff spot.
Yeah, what do you like about Lars Nootbaar at the top of the lineup, and what have you seen through the first couple of games that makes you think that perhaps they're going to stick with that?
Well, he's an on-base machine. He doesn't strike out. He takes walks. When he hits the ball, he hits it hard. All of the metrics around Lars Nootbaar are stupendous. I mean, he's top 10% in pretty much every important metric that they have. Exit velocity, we're not talking launch angle here, but exit velocity, chase rate, whiff rate, all of those things, hard hit rate, he's really, really high. Now, has that resulted in production yet? No. But I think one thing that we have to look for, I think the most important statistic for Lars Nootbaar this year is games started. Is he available? The most important ability, Ethan, is availability.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's available, then all of a sudden those metrics are going to rise to the top, and he's going to be the hitter and the producer that we expect him to be. And I think I don't know if he'll be their best leadoff. He's probably their best in terms of leadoff hitting, probably their best leadoff hitter, but probably their best number 2 hitter, probably their best number 3 hitter. So Oli Marmol has a lot of things that he can do with him. And that's one of the reasons that I brought up what I did earlier about Scott at the top, because I would love to see Lars Nootbaar, what he does as a number 3 hitter. And then you could hit, I'm a big proponent of the left, right, left. So I think I might go, even though I don't love, I might go Wynn. Once Mason Wynn gets hot, if you could go Scott, Wynn, Nootbaar, either Contreras or Arenado, Donovan, and then either Contreras or Arenado, you've really got something going there. And then Donovan and Walker, man, you would have a really deep lineup, but that's all incumbent upon Mason Wynn doing what he did last year. But man, I would love to see what would happen if you could start getting Victor Scott and Mason Wynn on base and running ahead of a guy like Lars Nootbaar. I would really be intrigued by that.
This is the Cards Hub post-game show as a part of Sports Hub STL. We love all of the interaction that's going on.
I want to respond to Jay Lee.
Yeah, let's do that.
Bernie and Paulie? Don't know who these two gentlemen are, but hey, I guess they're talking about the Cardinals. It's all good. Jay Lee, I've been around for 40 years. Come on now. Come on. I'm an old man. Bernie and Paulie are great, by the way, and Bernie is on Sports Hub STL on a regular basis. But yeah, we appreciate you being a part of our show, and you can join us before and after every Cardinal game, and post game. Our Cards Hub post game is fantastic, and Ethan is a big part of it. We also do post game for all Blues games, and the Blues now have won 9 in a row. They play Tuesday night against Detroit. We had soccer earlier. We had St. Louis City SC. They got clean sheeted again, by the way, by Austin. But we had the St. Louis City SC post game, and don't forget the Randy Karraker show featuring Brooke Grimsley and with Matthew Rocchio every weekday morning at 10. We've got a lot here, Ethan. We got a lot of stuff, don't we?
Best way to start your morning off with Brooke and Randy on Sports Hub STL in the AM. Let's go ahead and let's talk about this upcoming series against the Angels here as we begin to slowly wrap here. Cardinals, Angels starting a 3-game series tomorrow at 6:45. Miles Mikolas is on the bump for the Cardinals, and the perception from the St. Louis fans these last couple years when it comes to Miles Mikolas sure has flipped on its head. And as good as everything has been the last couple of years, I know that there is probably some nerves out there about the one of the Cardinals, previously one of their better starters here prior to the last couple of years. What are you wanting to see specifically out of Miles Mikolas in his first start of 2025 to make sure that he can be getting things going on the right track?
Ethan, all I expect from Miles Mikolas is innings. I want him to protect the other guys on this staff. I want Sonny Gray to be able to throw 5 or 6 innings every start he makes, and then the bullpen to give 3. I want Palante to do what he did today or give 6. I want Eric Fetty to be able to give 6, and then the bullpen give 3. I want Miles Mikolas, and I don't care how many runs he allows. I want Miles Mikolas to give us 7 or 8 innings every time he pitches. And then, of course, you want to protect Liberatore as well, right? You don't want him to have to throw too many innings, and you don't want to overwork your bullpen. What I want Miles Mikolas to do every single time he takes the mound is to force the bullpen to only have to get 6 or 7 outs. If he can do that, I'm a happy camper. I don't expect him to have a 3.5 ERA. If he has an earned run average of 4.5, 4.85, it's not ideal. You'd love to have 5.
I would be delighted if his ERA was 4.5 this year compared to what it was last year. I mean, last year I would have to go back and look, but I mean, it was in the 5s, I believe. I mean, it was a season to forget for Miles Mikolas in 2024. I think the biggest thing that I want to see from Miles Mikolas in this first start is we know that Miles Mikolas is going to eat innings. We know that he is going to overload the strike zone. The biggest thing that I want to see is better accuracy, better placement with 2 strikes. That is what killed him last year. It's the exact thing that the Cardinals offense is doing or did to the Twins staff this past weekend. I want to see Miles Mikolas be a little bit more careful with his placement. We saw a lot of home runs, a lot of 2-strike hits given up last year from Miles Mikolas. If he could be a little bit more careful with his placement, then I think that he's going to be okay. I think it's fair to mention too, he had a pretty good spring once again this season. Now that didn't end up meeting really anything last year, but you hope that he can ride that into the upcoming spring and that this year will be a little bit better of a showing from number 39 for the Cardinals.
And you can, especially with this team, Ethan, you can allow the opposition to hit the ball. It's a hard park to hit the ball out of, and he fills up the strike zone. If you can keep people off the bases by not walking them, and by the way, he has had in 2 of his Cardinal seasons, he's allowed the most hits in the league. So he's a guy who allows the opposition to get their bat on the ball. But with this defense, you should be able to get by. Palante is not a huge strikeout guy, but since he came into the league, Palante has the 2nd highest ground ball rate in all of Major League Baseball, second to Clark Schmidt of the Yankees. It's 66% ground balls that Palante gets. Now, is Mikolas going to get that? No, but with this outfield and with Nootbaar, Scott, hopefully Jordan Walker, you've got a lot of athleticism, a lot of balls that might have dropped previously because you had Burleson out there and because you had people that didn't run as well. It's wasn't as athletic as this group. I think that Miles Mikolas can have more success if he just keeps the ball in the ballpark.
I think that's a great point. I mean, looking back at his numbers from the past couple of years here, last year a 5.35 ERA, 2023 a 4.78 ERA. And if we could get him back to doing what he did in 2023, I honestly would be happy, because here's the thing about Miles Mikolas is in 2023, he was your number 2 probably. He started on opening day for the Cardinals. I mean, I think Adam Wainwright was probably the number 1 the prior season.
Nominal number 1, yeah. Yeah,
Adam Wainwright dropped off in 2023, obviously. So Miles Mikolas started on opening day in 2023. Now he's a 4. Now he's a 5. If you can get these numbers, those are 4, 5 average, I would say, numbers more so. So the expectation most definitely has dropped. The quality of starters that they have surrounded with him in that rotation are better. Hopefully that pressure alleviates as a result a little bit, Randy.
And by the way, Mikolas did spend a good portion of last year, and he faded down the stretch, but he spent a good portion of last year in the top 10 in terms of quality starts in the majors. And I believe he still finished in the top 15 in the number of quality starts that he had. So it's not like he's incapable of it, but you made the key point there. He's not a front of the rotation guy. We have to accept him as a back of the rotation guy. And every rotation needs the guy, like I said off the top, that can deliver innings. And we know Miles Mikolas can do that. And he also has the attitude for it. Adam Wainwright, a couple of years ago, during the pandemic and in 2021, he went to Mike Schilt and said, "Hey, I'm the old guy. Abuse me, and if I blow my arm out, I feel like I've had a really good career." And I think Miles Mikolas is in that same boat now. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Mikolas went to Ollie Marmol and said, "Hey, I'll give you whatever you ask me for in terms of number of pitches. And if it happens that I blow my arm out, it does." And he's not going to. He's a horse. He's a big guy. But you need those kind of pitchers on your staff if you're going to succeed.
A quick look around the league here in the National League Central. The Miami Marlins defeat the Pittsburgh Pirates by a final of 3-2. The Cubs, after 7, are on top of the Arizona Diamondbacks by a score of 3-2. The Brewers get blown out once again by the New York Yankees, 12-3, the final score. I tell you what, those new style bats down there in the Bronx are working right now for the Yankees. That's going to be an interesting thing to keep an eye on here in the coming weeks and months, because and we actually saw a member of the Twins today, Ryan Jeffers, used that same style of bat. Didn't have necessarily the same effect for him today, but that'll be something to keep an eye on here, Randy.
Yeah, everybody will have them by next week. There's no doubt about it. And they're not illegal. It's just different. And the Yankees have used them to great success in the first weekend of the season.
That is an understatement. And then finally, the Giants defeat the Cincinnati Reds by a final score of 6-3. So a lot of losing going on once again today in the National League Central, while the Cardinals pull a 9-2 win out of their hats. Once again, another quiet crowd here today at the ballpark. Randy, I know that you had mentioned that earlier when you were down at Busch prior to the rain delay. What were your biggest takeaways? I know we had a sellout on opening day, as we always do, but thin crowds here the last couple of days.
Yeah, and a lot of people said, well, it's the weather, but there were 7 or 8, Ethan, completely empty sections. And that's not the weather. That's unsold tickets. And I got a ton of response when I put it up on Facebook, asking people why they weren't coming. And there's a lot of disdain for ownership. People don't feel like ownership is doing enough to provide them with a winner. There's a lot of people upset because the Cardinals haven't been to the playoffs in each of the last 2 years. I think a lot of it comes back to, and I saw this and I took this in on Facebook. I think there is a lot of Mo fatigue, and he brought that up last year in an interview with Frank Cusimano, that he knows that the community is fatigued with him. I think there are a lot of things, safety in downtown St. Louis. I think that has a lot that goes into it. I just think that this is a pretty fun team, and I think there are a lot of interesting players. I love watching Victor Scott II play. I really think a guy like Brendan Donovan, I think he might be the best all-around player on the team. I think Walker is ascending. Newt Barr is a fun player who's also pretty darn good. And when he gets going, Mason Wynn is going to be fine. If you saw Mason Wynn play last year, you know what he's capable of. I just think there's a lot of fun elements for St. Louis, and we we refer to ourselves as the best baseball town in America. I think there's a lot of things to be interested in and go and see. Now, the games are on TV. The weather was threatening today. We did have a rain delay. There was a lot there. But I would hope if this team does the sorts of things that it did over the course of this first series of the season, that people will start to literally, if not figuratively, buy back in.
Unless there's some fans out there that want to go see Mike Trout the upcoming couple of games, which with the interleague, with these teams coming into town every other year now, that charm is wearing off a little bit, I would say.
T-shirt, Ethan, saying Trout is an overrated player.
Oh no. Oh geez. Trout is a player that gets injured, I would say, an unfortunate amount, because he is so good for the game. But let's not mistake that when Mike Trout is healthy, he is still one of the best players in baseball. Hulk Hogan's T-shirt, I love your comments, but that one I am nowhere near with you on that one.
Now,
so,
let me start by saying this. Mike Trout was never as good in his first 10 years as Albert Pujols was in his first 10 years. A lot of what made people think that Mike Trout was a better player than Albert Pujols is because Mike Trout walked a lot. And walks are the analytics people, they adore walks. I liked the fact that Albert swung the bat and drove in runs and got on base and scored runs. Every metric over their first 10 years, Albert was better. But that being said, Mike Trout, for his generation, because Albert was his first 10 years, for Mike Trout's first 10 years, he was the best guy. Now, the injuries have certainly hurt him, but I don't think there's a player, Ethan, right now in baseball that is the equal of what Mike Trout was between 2012 and 2022.
As far as five-tool players go, I think off the top of my head that I would probably agree with you. I mean, the first two that come to mind would be, I guess, Mookie Betts and Fernando Tatis, but Mookie's been around so long at this point. As far as just the hype around him at the beginning of his career, I don't know if there's someone that has it that level of hype that Mike Trout did and lived up to it, no doubt, as well. So I think you bring up some great points there. No, Mike Trout is not an overrated player,
No.
confirmed by yours truly here on Sports Hub STL. The Cardinals 3-0, starting off the year with 3 straight victories against the Minnesota Twins. They face off against the Los Angeles Angels tomorrow, 6:45 start. Miles Mikolas heading out to the bump for the Redbirds. Randy, before we wrap up, any final thoughts, comments on the red hot start for the Birds?
Yeah, I am. First of all, I got a couple of things. I want to start with this. Despite Newt Barr not having a good day today, I am enthralled by what Lars Newt Barr did in the opening series. You take the opening series and you really like it. But I'm a big believer that you win in baseball still, even though it's changed a lot, but you still win, in my opinion, with great starting pitching. And for circa 2025, I know it wasn't Bob Gibson or Chris Carpenter or Darryl Kyle or Adam Wainwright type performances that we saw, but the performances from Sonny Gray and Eric Fetty and today Andre Palante are what helps you win, what makes you win in 2025. If the Cardinals can go through the rotation like that every time and keep this group healthy, if they can start like this, if you can get quality starts, these weren't quality starts. If you can go 5 innings and allow 2 runs 75% of the time, you're going to be in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what your offense does. If you can be that sort of starting rotation, you're going to be in the playoffs. Now, extraordinarily small sample size, but I love what I saw from the starting pitching. By the way, somebody mentioned earlier that the Twins weren't to test. Twins are a pretty good team. I know they don't have all their guys, but the Twins are no pushover. A lot of people are picking Minnesota to win that AL Central this year. So I am impressed by what the Cardinals did here in winning the first 3 against the Twinks.
The Cards Hub post-game show is presented by Hot Shots, St. Louis's home for all the games, all the time since 1990. Find yours at hotshotsnet.com. He is Randy Karraker. I am Ethan Hannaford, and this has been the Cards Hub post-game show right here on Sports Hub STL. We appreciate you joining us. Randy will be back on the YouTubes tomorrow at 10 o'clock with the one and only Brooke Grimsley, and then we'll have Cards Hub 365 tomorrow afternoon and the post-game show recapping, hopefully, a 4th straight Cardinals win to start off the season tomorrow night. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you tomorrow.